Thanks, Jill. The first cruise missiles to leave Europe under the INF treaty will be withdrawn from the Molesworth Air Force Base later today. The missiles will be taken to nearby RAF Alconbury before being flown back to America. The removal of the missiles has been welcomed as a triumph by anti-nuclear groups, but has also been seen as a vindication of NATO's tough nuclear policy. Rory Kethlen-Jones has been looking at the history of cruise in Britain and finding out how people who live near the bases view its departure.
5 years ago, the first cruise missiles arrived at Greenham Common amidst bitter controversy. To NATO, they were a vital deterrent to Soviet SS-20 missiles. To CND, a threat to our very survival. A small airfield at Molesworth in Cambridgeshire became the second cruise site and the scene of more demonstrations. Now, as the result of the INF treaty ratified at the Moscow summit, Molesworth will see the beginning of the end of cruise in Britain. This morning, the base's 16 missiles will be taken to nearby RAF Alconbury for a flight back to the United States. A small but historic part of the peace process, according to one analyst.
Politically, it's important because it demonstrates that the resolve that NATO has shown over the last decade has worked. NATO has stuck together. And I think for European security, it's also important because with these missiles, as they go, Soviet missiles are leaving as well, the SS-20s, which are targeted against Europe and really represent a significant threat to European security.
In just a few hours' time, the missiles will be coming through these gates on the first leg of their journey back to the United States and destruction. The government, in the form of Defence Secretary George Younger, will be here to wave them off. So will the peace protesters. Both sides are claiming the departure of the missiles as their victory.
Certainly a victory for CND. We share a large amount of the credit for this, we believe, because we've helped create the massive force of public opinion that's made this possible.
For 7 years, peace protesters have camped outside Molesworth, their numbers swollen by thousands for big demonstrations. Now there are just 2 residents, and despite the discomfort, they're not planning to depart quite yet.
We miss hot water and colour television and central heating, but if it's necessary, and if the missile warheads are staying, then we'll stay for a little longer. It's worth there's been too much sacrificed here for us to just up and go.
The Soviet Union has already demonstrated the destruction of its missiles, but neither side is obliged to destroy the nuclear material in their warheads.
The nuclear charges themselves are not covered technically by the INF treaty, but of course they will go back to the United States and be reused.
So they could end up in different nuclear weapons?
They might.
The tiny village of Molesworth seems to have taken the sudden arrival of weapons of mass destruction in its stride, although the pub did ban peace protesters. Now Cruise's departure causes little excitement.
Nobody wants nuclear missiles, nobody certainly wants them on their doorstep. But I think the general feeling was, oh, well, we've got to have them, we've got to have them. But now that they're going, I expect the sub feeling is, oh well, that's it.
If I was asked my true opinion, I think we do need a deterrent. So I'm probably the opposite, really. I think we should have it.
You wouldn't mind them staying?
I wouldn't mind them staying.
So, for the peace protesters and the villagers, life without cruise will be little different. But now someone will have to decide what to do with the £45 million airbase, which has been completed just in time to be made redundant.